Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we are going to have a look at one of the Azure feature, which is the Azure AD Identity Protection. As we all know that the identity protection products has historically protected users in detecting, investigating, and remediating the identity-based risks. There is an area of opportunity for protecting the identity options from the Azure, which can help in proactive monitoring and remediation. So it's always recommended to explore the native cloud offerings that's been offered from the Microsoft, which is a major cost savings for most of the organizations, because as we know, most of the organizations are currently having adopted to the Microsoft cloud. So, having talked about it, today we are going to have a look at the Azure AD Identity Protection. As you see the portal, which I have opened right now. The Azure AD Identity Protection is a solution within the Azure AD that provides additional capabilities for monitoring and managing the user identities and determining whether the identity has been compromised. Basically, we have an option to protect, report, or also notify. Uh, it's always better to always monitor our identity, because as we all know, someone is always scanning and attempting to access our identity from the internet. So there is a lot of suspicious activity, uh, who is trying to scan our username and compromise one credential. So just in case if they get one credential compromised, then they get access to your directory or to your data. So it's always better to have a strategy to secure your identity protection. Um, Microsoft has developed a lot in the identity protection platform. So basically, Microsoft uses the threat intelligence database. They call it as a Microsoft Threat Intelligence Database, which is used by the Azure AD Identity Protection. So the main backbone of the Azure AD Identity Protection is the Threat Intelligence Database. Microsoft uses this Threat Intelligence Database to find the risks, identify the users that are affected, and determine the sort of threat through the sandboxing in the cloud, and also they use the machine learning methods to identify what are the new types of alerts and proactively uh, remediate them. Uh, and also the new activities and identity related uh, identity risk items which has been identified are fed back into the threat intelligence database, so that Microsoft keeps improving their their method of identifying the risks and reducing the false positives. Yeah. So what the like there are few things that we can look into the identity protection. So let's go into the Azure portal. The first things, if you want to proceed further on the identity protection, is just log into portal.azure.com and look into the identity protection. This is the default screen you get, and here the overview. You have the option to filter by date range, which is for 30 days, and then you see on the medium risk users your overall identity secure score. Yeah, don't look into this because this is my demo tenant. I've not done more clean up all the security configuration on this. Yeah. So basically, when you go into identity protection overview, this is what you get. And on the left side, you have three options. The first one is the protect mode, second one is the report mode, and third one is the notify mode. We're going to look into each and everything one by one. So when I go into the protect mode, basically we have three options: the user risk policy and the sign-in risk policy. Um, yes, what you can have, like a doubt. A few people can have a doubt. What is the difference between a user risk policy and a sign-in risk policy? Basically, the sign-in risk policy is something like, it detects that some suspicious actions that come along with the sign-in. So, like before a user, let's say if a user is trying to sign in, it can detect some suspicious action that come along with the sign-in. So it is mainly focused on the sign-in activity itself and analyzes the probability that the sign-in may not have been performed by the actual user itself. It can be some suspicious application. So based on this, the sign-in risks check for things like whether a user has signed in from a unfamiliar location or unfamiliar IP address or even unfamiliar application, some malicious application. So for this, like we can choose some policy, which we'll have a look at it in the sign-in risk policy. Uh, when we talk about the user risk policy is something like it detects that probably the user account has been compromised already, and it is detecting the possible risk events that are coming from the user's behavior. So, like risk events requiring, like for example, the user's uh, uh, activity over a length of time, because Microsoft does not uh, bring this user risk policy in 5 or 10 minutes. It calculates over a period of time. I don't know that particular time at this moment. So they calculate over a period of time, and based on that, they will be bringing the user risk policy. And you also have an option to make some mitigations with user risk policy. So let's have a look at the user risk policy. For example, when I go into the user risk policy, by default, in the assignments, you can choose to whom target. So it's always a good idea to target with a few set of pilot users, see the behavior, and then eventually increase it to all the users. So here I'm just going into the assignments. In my case, I have just selected select users individuals, and then I have selected few users. We have an option to exclude as well, and the user risk. The basically the user risk category is given into three types. Based on the risk level, high, medium, and low. In my example, I'm just choosing high. So the moment when you click on high, um, there is something called control where you can give, okay, if the user risk level is stated as high, then the access control I can give, okay, block access, or you can say allow access, but you need to change the password. So I feel the second option is better, until and unless it is going to be any admin account, yes, you can always go and choose the block access. Because if you choose the block access for a regular user, I'm not sure how the behavior is going to be. So based on your requirement, you can choose which option suits best. But I think like for the admin accounts, it's always better to go with the default block access. And then we have the option to enforce the policy. You have to turn it on. The moment when you turn it on, this policy is enforced to the set of users to whom you have targeted. So this is about the user risk policy. When coming to talk about the sign-in risk policy, yeah, it's more or less the same. You have the assignments where you can target to all users or a group of users, and then you have an option to exclude. Here, you can also choose the sign-in risk. For example, when you choose high, done, and then the access is like you can just say block access or allow access, but you need to require the MFA. So based on your requirement, you can choose this. And also here we have the option to enforce the policy. Yes, we can do that. Sign-in risk policy safe failure. Maybe something wrong here. I have chosen. I don't know. Let me choose for some user. For example, I'm selecting one user. Select yes, requirement MFA. Yeah. So this is the way how you configure sign-in risk policy. And here you have the multi-factor authentication policy. This is very interesting part which you need to talk about because the MFA you can target in three places. Option one is you can always target MFA based on the application and the conditional access. Conditional access policy. Basically, you can create a conditional access policy targeted to an application and then a challenge for MFA. And the second one is you can go to per user settings in the Azure, and then choose the MFA, require MFA option. That's possible. And this one is like the required Azure AD MFA auth registration. This is like something before a user can respond to the MFA on his authenticator app. He is enforced to do the Azure AD MFA registration. This provides an additional way of security so that the any user who is onboarded into your tenant is mandatorily requested to do the Azure AD MFA auth registration. So by default, it's always recommended to select for all users so that any users is mandatory required to do the Azure AD MFA registration. So based on your requirement, you can choose if you have enforced the MFA with the conditional access policy, and then if you don't want to do the Azure AD MFA auth registration, then you can ignore this option. So this is what we talked about the protect mode. Well, coming to talk about the report mode, yes, the report mode is available by default to everyone. So we no need to do any configurations for the report mode to work for any tenant. And one important thing I forgot to tell you, for the Azure Identity Protection to work in a complete way, it's always recommended to have Azure AD Premium P2 licenses so that you can utilize the Azure AD Identity Protection features completely for all the users. By default, if you come with Azure AD free license, you don't get the opportunity to see and explore and utilize all the features. Only with the P2, you have the opportunity to utilize all of the features in Azure AD Identity Protection. Well, coming to talk about the report, for example, here I have one of the user, which is two users, which is Piotr and myself. So when I go and select this user, for example, I have an option to uh, see what is the risky sign-ins. So for example, when I go into risky sign-ins, I don't see anything over here. This can be a possibility that this user was treated as risky in the past, but now it's still present here. Maybe it's marked as a false positive. So there is also a case that usually I've also seen cases where like a few people are marked as false positive for some reasons. So in that case, like what you need to do is just select that particular user, and then you have the option dismiss user risk. This is very important part which you need to do, because the moment only when you do the dismiss user risk, Microsoft, it is updated in the Microsoft database. So the moment when it is updated in the Microsoft Threat Intelligence database, it understands, okay, this user is not suspicious. So it marks this user as as a false positive. So here in my case, I have just selected and then I'm just clicking on false positive. After that, it will eventually remove the user from this portal. And then if you want to, just in case, if you want to mark a user as compromised, then you're just telling the threat intelligence, Microsoft Threat Intelligence Database, yes, what you have identified is correct. So just do this uh, mitigation, sorry, not mitigation, do this type of risk detection on my tenant. So Microsoft will keep this updated for your tenant. In coming to talk about remediation, for example, when I click on the three dots, I have an option to uh, just a second. Yeah, so I have an option to see the risk history also. When I go into the risk history, yeah, you see here, this was the reason why the user was marked here as a risky user. Because, for example, if you see, this user is logged in on, yes, 2021. He is logged in from Poland. He's my colleague, so that's the reason it's showing as risk history. For example, if I go even to my account, you can also see something similar to that. That's the reason it's showing over here. You see here, it shows atypical travel. So maybe I logged in from a different location, and that's the reason it marked my account at risk. Okay. So this is what we see. So basically, for the risk users, you can come here. You can use the confirm users compromise and dismiss user risk. And apart from that, when you go into, yeah, and one important thing, for any admins to act on the identity protection, you need to have the security admin role or the security operator role. With the security operator role, yes, you can do the confirm user compromised and dismiss user risk. But when you go with the security admin role, you have the opportunity to reset the password for the user also. So, so basically, if you are going to give this for a SOC team, then you can go with the security operator role where they can simply confirm the user is compromised, dismiss the user risk, and the reset password can be taken care by the user itself. Um, or just in case if you have a different approach, then you can use the security admin role and the password reset can be done by that particular team. Yeah. So now we are going into the risky sign-ins. In the risky sign-ins also we have the similar option. In my tenant, I don't have any risky sign-ins. So let's try to filter it for the 90 days. I'm not sure if it allows or if it's only for 1 month. Let's have a look at it. I think it allows only for 1 month. Yeah. No, it allows only for a month. So in my case, I don't see anything. So in the risky sign-ins also you have an option to reset the password over here. In my case, I don't have the real data to show to you. So yeah, it's more or less the same. But here you have the option to reset the password. And when coming to talk about the risky workload identities, yes, this is a very good options where like there are a lot of SPNs being utilized in the Azure AD tenant. For example, when we talk about an enterprise organization, a lot of developers who are dependent on the Azure AD for their identity, they register the app in the Azure AD and they are dependent on the service principal. So just in case if any one of the service principal is wrongly registered or if it's been compromised, we will be able to see it over here. So these are the risky workload identities, basically the enterprise apps that's registered in your Azure AD tenant, which is utilizing the service principals. And these service principals, just in case if they are compromised, you'll be able to see it over here. So just in case, like if you see any service principal compromised, you can select. You have an option confirm service principal compromised or dismiss the service principal risk. Uh, yes. So here, this is at the risky workload identities is in the preview state. But however, if you want to try it out, you can try this and see the results because it's in the report mode. Basically, there is no harm in trying the report mode. And at last, you have the risk direction. The risk direction is something like it is a combination of risky user and along with a risky sign-in. So if the user is already suspected to be suspicious and if any activity is coming from his side, you'll be able to see it in the risk detection report. In my tenant, I don't have that anything, so I don't have anything to show for you over here. Even if I choose for last 90 days, let's see. No, I don't see. So in that case, I don't have an option to show that in this demo. And finally, you have an option for the notify. So when you click on the notify, this is the place where you have the opportunity to notify the administrators in your organization so that if anyone has if anyone has detected any alerts, they would be receiving this email to see okay who has been compromised and take the necessary actions. So by default, if you see the users, the global admin, security admin, and security reader roles are automatically added to this list. So yeah, and basically they should have a valid email, or you have to specify an alternate email to get this. And if you want to do a custom email, yes, you can go ahead and add a custom email and then save it so that they will start receiving the custom reports. And also there is an option for the weekly digest. In the weekly digest, you also see like the global admin, security admin, or the security reader are automatically added to the list. Here you have an option to yeah. So I so here like these users would be receiving the weekly digest emails of the identity protection alerts. Having said that, this like this identity protection is definitely a good feature for any organization. I would always suggest that uh, devise a strategy to look for the security recommendations. So based on your organization, so this will really help. For example, if you detect any suspicious applications in the risky workload identities, you can report it to the application owner and ask to correct it. And also there is option here to integrate it to the Microsoft Defender Secure Score that can also be shared with the application owner or the users for identifying any potential risks. Basically, this identity protection is a very good feature which comes almost for free. In order to utilize them, you have to just give the Azure AD P2 license, which is not going to be much costlier because most of the organization are utilizing the P2 license for their user accounts as well. So this would be really helpful to have monitoring and taking the remediation from one ecosystem, Microsoft, which would be really helpful in terms of monitoring and also for the users. Having said that, today, yeah, I think that's all I can talk about the identity protection summary. Feel free to subscribe our channel to get more updates on Microsoft Cloud. Thank you and have a great day.